all want to connect. We're social animals. Ordinarily, we find very safe and surface level things to connect over. The weather, recent current events in the news, sports, things that we can find common ground on. But the connection I'm talking about, as you can probably suspect, is much deeper. It's just as simple. It's just as simple as talking about the weather, but it hits much deeper. So there's one thing that every single man is walking around in the world feeling right now, and it's probably not what you think it is. It's connection. And how do I know this to be true? Number one, I'm a man, and I know I feel that myself internally, whether I admit it on the outside or not. But just this past week, we had our first in-person Austin Rising Man Fire Circle gathering. 31 men from the Austin community. It was unbelievable. And without going into all the details, the way that it came together, the enthusiasm from the men in this community, wanting to get together, wanting to sit around a fire, not knowing exactly what they were showing up for, but ultimately the same thing I've seen happen over and over again. When we bring men together, regardless of what our backgrounds or our belief systems are, and we sit down and we create a safe container for men to share what is happening for them. Connection is something that we're all out there in the world looking for, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman or an elder or younger. We all want to connect. We're social animals. And ordinarily, we find very safe and surface level things to connect over. The weather, recent current events in the news, sports, things that we can find common ground on and share moments of connection. But the connection I'm talking about, as you can probably suspect, is much deeper. It's just as simple. It's just as simple as talking about the weather, but it hits much deeper. And I'm talking about the type of connection that's available when we've created a safe space, when we've asserted some agreements amongst each other, and we've all consented to confidentiality, to not judge one another, to bring the rawest, most honest truth that I can access in this moment. Connection becomes possible. And then all it takes is one person to move all of the shit aside, all the things that keep me from really expressing my true self, from really talking about what's going on. I just moving enough of that out of the way so that I can say the thing that's really happening for me. So I can talk about my financial challenges. So I can be honest about my infidelities in my relationship, or where I cheated on my taxes, or something else. Doesn't matter what it is, because as soon as that happens, it gives permission for everyone there, everyone who's operating under these same agreements, who's shown up in this space with the commitment to bring our fullest, truest version of ourselves. We all drop in a level deeper. And then one after the other, you see men just unfolding, unraveling, sharing themselves, tears, emotions, and remembering that just before we got to this circle, just before we got to this moment in time where we sat down, did some simple introductions, made some agreements for how we're going to conduct ourselves, we were all walking around in the world. Many of us as strangers. The majority of these 31 guys who showed up for this first circle didn't know each other. For the first time in a lot of these events that I've hosted, I didn't know more than half of the men. It was my first time meeting them. And yet, here we were, having real conversations about things that ordinarily we wouldn't just lead off with in a conversation, much deeper than talking about the weather. And not only were men sharing what was up for them, sharing the things that they don't ordinarily talk about, there were other men in that circle looking back at them and saying, "Oh man, me too. Me too." It's our version of me too, because we all have that. It's that relatability that men value above so many other things. Just to remember for a moment that I'm not unique, that I'm not the only one going through my problems, that I'm not the only one who sucks with money. I'm not the only one who can't find a relationship. I'm not the only one who loses my temper with my children and my family sometimes. When we remember that we're not unique, the weight of that burden lightens a bit. And when we look around a circle of 30 other men and see that half of them are raising their hands saying, "Me too, me too," there's a peace that is available in that. It's camaraderie, solidarity. It's knowing that I'm not the only one going through this. Therefore, I am more capable. I believe myself more capable of finding a way through this challenge, this obstacle, this hurdle. When I find out that others have been sexually molested or abused, when I find out that others have done things that they're deeply regretful for. And it takes a very specific type of space to share these things. But when those things are shared, I feel more capable of stepping out into the world, of owning my truth, of doing what I need to do to become better. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Every single one of us, we just want to be better versions of ourselves. And prior to circles like this, we're all just walking around in the world, loaded up with all of these emotions, all of these past traumas, all of this history that is influencing the way I see the world and the way I see myself, waiting for an opportunity to plug in, to connect, to broadcast what's happening beneath the surface. Every single one of us wants to do that. And so many of us have learned that it's not safe to do so. And the reality is that the world largely is not safe to do that. We need to create spaces like this for ourselves and for each other. Because when we access and unearth some of these things that are troubling us, not only do they appear lighter, we start to move past them. I can't tell you how many times I've shared something that I've held on to for decades, large chunks of my lifetime, my 35 years on this planet, and then feeling the weight of that thing that was so heavy, so scary, so overwhelming, just start to diffuse, to become small, to become less significant, to have less impact over me. That's the value of connection. That's what's available. That's what's possible when we do this. And whether we're sitting around a real fire or we're connecting on Zoom over a screen, as long as we're creating spaces where we have these agreements, these things that we have committed ourselves to upholding, to create that level of safety, to create a space where anything that is shared here is not only welcome, it is safe and protected. It's not going to go anywhere. That's when we change. That's when we grow, and that's when the whole world changes. So if you have not found yourself in a safe space like this one, and you don't know where to find one, then reach out to us. We know where to find one. We can point you to one. Or if you have one and you haven't been using it, or there's a men's circle down the street and you know that you can trust the men who are doing it, but you've been kind of resistant to stepping in because, hey, no one will understand anyway. I guarantee you there's way more people that'll get it than won't. Lean in, step forward, gather some of that courage and just hear my voice. I've spoken to thousands of men, and I swear none of them have ever been unique. No man has yet to share something that I've never heard at least another man say for himself. Usually it's all of us. So I hope this message hits again. Sometimes you just need to hear it again. I know I need to hear it over and over again. I am not unique. I am capable of connecting. When I connect and I get that connection that I've been seeking out, I change and I become a better version of myself, not just for me, but for everyone around me. Just let that land. Make sure you circle back and tune in next week for another Monday morning meditation. Peace.